It's so great to have you all here. Thank you all for joining us this evening. My name is Wes Whiteside. I'm the Associate Director for Recruitment and Diversity at the Newhouse School. And I want to welcome you all to this evening's discussion, Supercharged Ads. I'm so excited for this. I am a fan of football, and a fan of the Super Bowl, and of course, the fan of the commercials that we all love and we can't wait to see. So we got a great conversation for you all this evening. So before we start, I do myself and Syracuse University, we would like to acknowledge with respect to the Onondaga Nation, firekeepers of the Haudenosaunee, and indigenous people on whose ancestry's lands Syracuse University now stands. And as I said before, thank you all for joining us. We have a great presentation for you. One of my favorite professors is going to be leading the discussion, Professor Beth Egan. A little bit about Professor Beth Egan. She has over 25 years in the media industry. She served as a manager and also account director. She's worked with amazing brands like Kraft, Coca-Cola, Campbell's, Starwoods Hotel, Continental Airways, American, West Airlines, Budget, Rent-A-Car, and also with Avon as well, and even AT&T. So she is a professor in our advertising department. She's done some amazing work in New York City, and then also Atlanta as well. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to turn it over to Professor Beth Egan. Hello, Beth, how you doing?
Hi, Wes. Thanks for having me tonight. I was really excited when you asked me to do this.
Thank you.
I'd also like to introduce my partner in crime, Tessa LaTrenta. Tessa is an alumni and former student of mine. She now works at NBCU, and she has kind of been responsible for making sure all these spots get sold. So I'm really thrilled to have Tessa join me in walking you through sort of how the advertisers approach the opportunity to advertise in the Super Bowl. Tessa, do you want to take a few minutes to add a bit to your introduction?
Yes. Hi, everyone. First off, thank you, Professor Egan, Wes, Newhouse, so much for having me tonight. Very excited to be joining this conversation. As Professor Egan and Wes, I'll also echo that sentiment. Professor Egan was one of my favorite professors. I can't say that because Professor Faulkner was also one of my favorite, but the two of you absolute best professors at Newhouse. So thank you guys very much for having me. As mentioned, I graduated from Newhouse in December of 2017, and then from there started working at NBC Universal. And I think my first week was maybe a week or two prior to the 2018 Super Bowl. So I like to say that I've had the opportunity to work on 2 Super Bowls and 3 Olympics at this point. So it has been a very busy few years and months. I manage sales planning for sports and Olympic properties at the company, and very excited to be sharing some information today.
Thank you, Tessa. So let's get started. Can everybody see the presentation? Great. So we're here to talk about supercharged Super Bowl ads. Again, sort of how do folks think about the Super Bowl? In my 25-year career, almost every year I invested time and energy in evaluating the investment in the Super Bowl for a variety of clients. A handful of times, or a number of times, I should say, actually purchased the Super Bowl for my clients. It's one of the biggest decisions that clients make in terms of their overall campaign spending. And in addition to evaluating the Super Bowl, I have actually also been to the Super Bowl, hence the background here. Yes, I was there for the helmet catch, actually sitting on the 40-yard line where the catch was made. And I might have been sitting next to Boyz II Men at the time, who are also Giants fans. So that was very fun. So before we get started, I would love for you guys to pop in the chat and share what are some of the most memorable Super Bowl ads for you? When you think of Super Bowl advertising, what ads pop into mind for you? Just go ahead and put that in the chat. Anybody have some favorites? Somebody's got to remember one or two. Oh,
Professor Egan, they're showing up in the Q&A
okay,
section.
hold on.
Hmm?
I can't see that. So Wes, if you want to.
Oh yeah, so we've got the Not Your Doritos, the Budweiser What's Up ad, the Budweiser dog. Let's see, the Bud Light commercials. Someone says every Tide ad. Bud Light
Great.
again, imported from Detroit. Let's see, Cheetos, M&Ms, Budweiser's ad with the lost dog and the horse, saves from the wolves. Kim Kardashian, T-Mobile, Fansville, GoDaddy.
These are great.
Yeah,
these are fantastic. Yeah, guys, I mean, you're really hitting on all of the top most memorable and ads that have won awards, and we'll talk about that in a little later. But I wanted to talk about, why is the Super Bowl this cradle of creativity for advertising? Why does it hold such a pull for the advertising industry? I'm going to show you some examples of some of the most well-known Super Bowl ads over history. The first one I'm going to show, actually this ad only aired once during the Super Bowl, and you'll see what year in the title. Are we getting sound? We are, okay.
Secure from the pests of any complicated is more powerful weapon than any fleet. What are we on earth? We are one people, one will, one resolve, one cause. Our enemies shall talk themselves to death, and we will fight it.
January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh, and you'll see.
So for those of you who are parents or alumni, you might remember that commercial. For those of you who are prospective students, you might have to ask your parents why 1984 was such an important year in the context of this ad. This ad only ran once, and we're still talking about it. Speaks to the power of Super Bowl advertising. The next one I want to share, some of you called out Budweiser. The Budweiser Clydesdales are, something that we wait for every year. They took a hiatus last year, but they're coming back this year. This is just an example of one of the historical Clydesdale ads. Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me do that again.
show if you won't.
Who doesn't love a pony, right? And this next ad ran in the year 2000.
Okay, Dino. I gotta go to a lot of stores to get what you like. I'll be back. If you leave me now, you'll take away the biggest part of me. Ooh, no, baby. Please don't go. Ooh, girl, I just want you to stay. Hey, man, I'm getting car sick. I think I'm gonna boot.
So not only just being adorable and funny, that ad is very important for another reason, which we'll talk about later on in the presentation. So why the Super Bowl? Why all this focus on this one football game? Well, what advertisers are always trying to do is reach as many people as they can, reaching mass audiences, creating awareness for their brands, and hopefully turning that into action and conversions for the brands. This is an historical view of the Super Bowl ratings over time since the Super Bowl launched in 1967. For those of you who aren't familiar with what a rating is, a rating represents the percent of television households who are viewing a program at any given time. So what you're seeing here is fairly consistently, the Super Bowl reaches at least half of all US households. It is really the only program that can reach such a massive audience in one punch. Last year was one of the lowest rated Super Bowls, and Tessa can speak to sort of what we're looking at, what we're thinking is going to happen this year. And then just real briefly, that share line just represents the percentage of viewing households. So of all people viewing TV at that time, what percent? So that is almost 3/4 of all TVs that were tuned in are tuned into the Super Bowl. And that is why advertisers are willing to pay exorbitant amounts of money to gain their 30, 60, 90 seconds of fame on this show. This year's the Super Bowl ads went for $6.5 million. That's almost a 20% increase over last year. If I did the quick math right across this chart, that is the largest increase ever. And Tessa can try to speak to why we think that happened as well. So it's a huge investment for these advertisers. Part of the reason for that is 43% of people report watching the Super Bowl for the ads. So not only is it a large audience, but it's a large audience that's tuning in for advertising. And when can we ever say that? So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Tessa to take us through the dynamics of how the Super Bowl is shifting from a live linear experience to much more than that.
Definitely. Thanks, Professor Egan. So as we know, the media landscape and consumers' viewing habits are rapidly shifting, and live sports have become really one of the last opportunities to reach not only that mass audience, as you just alluded to and showed those figures, but also a highly engaged audience. And nothing is larger than the Super Bowl, the one day each year that transcends sports. So as we were just sharing, it's one of those last opportunities that captivates half the country. And in 2021, the Super Bowl reached over 96 million people. And it is maybe one of the best media and marketing opportunities left. But what we wanted to talk a little bit about today is how the event is now consumed. So, as we've seen across the industry, linear ratings and traditional broadcast television continue to decline, at a rapid rate. But with those declines, we've also seen the growth in digital year over year, and even triple-digit growth in streaming viewership since 2018. The Super Bowl now reaches over 5.5 million people at any given moment during the stream. And with this upcoming Super Bowl being the first on Peacock as well as the NBC Sports app, we're predicting an even more drastic increase in the digital viewership. Next slide, please. So we wanted to touch on how did we get here, and what's driving this growth, especially when we look at sports programs. So when you look at the platforms that were streamed in minutes in the second half of 2021, 2/3 were watching via connected TV. And the growth and adoption of connected TV continues to have this profound effect on the streaming landscape. So with the interactive user experience and functionality improving, more and more people are becoming regular users of connected TV and streamers. And when you think about it related to sports, you want to have that same viewing experience as the traditional broadcast television, viewing on the big screen. And that allows for that. And I'm not sure if anybody has been watching some of the wild card and divisional NFL football games, but there has been some amazing football played lately, and you definitely want to be watching it on the big screen. And connected TV is really driving that growth. Next slide, please. Thank you. So using Sunday Night Football as an example from this past season and a trend that we expect to continue into the Super Bowl and of course into next season, is looking at live stream and how that's adding scale to these audiences from the traditional linear and broadcast television. So looking at the live stream only within Sunday Night Football, 16% were accessing it via of the audience were accessing it through the live stream. An additional 2% of adults 18 to 34 were, streaming this as well as watching on linear television. So that's adding close to 18% of our audience that's coming from streaming outside of the traditional broadcast and linear television. And we expect for this to continue even further. As you know, we're now airing these games on OTT platforms like Peacock, Paramount Plus for Viacom, CBS, Amazon had Thursday Night Football last season. So this is a trend that just continues to, progress year over year, season over season. We're seeing the average viewership, again with Sunday Night Football, year over year increase in both minutes viewed plus unique viewers. So those unique viewers, as we could see within the last season, just continue to, apologies, a little difficult to see there with the coloring, but it just continues to grow as each season progresses. And we're seeing more people accessing it via the stream rather than traditional broadcast. It's only adding to the audience of people who, people are going to watch this content. It's just how they're consuming it. And then wanted to touch slightly on how the Super Bowl is sold today. So as we know, viewership is changing and the industry is moving along to change and as well with how those habits are adapting. So we're now looking at total audience delivery, a metric that combines not only linear broadcast, but also cable channels, tablets, connected TV into one single metric. And that's, the ultimate goal of how to sell these major, events like Super Bowl, Olympics, World Cup, these sporting events that mass audiences are tuning into, but how are they tuning into? So the main goal is to sell based off of impression model, where we're selling an audience rather than a platform. And this is especially true for Super Bowl. And you'll see this in this upcoming Super Bowl, where anything that you were to view on the traditional broadcast, it'll be the same ads on the stream on either Peacock or the NBC Sports app. So we've called it pass through rather than dynamically inserting ads into just the live stream only. And I don't know if anybody has been tuning into the Winter Olympics, but some of the viewership, and especially on Peacock, has been incredibly high numbers. You've probably seen some of those headlines recently where, most streamed Winter Olympics coming out of Tokyo, things like that. And we're just going to continue to see these trends increase from where they have been as people start to watch more, Peacock, Paramount Plus, and these OTT become more accessible.
Thank you, Tessa. And all of these trends are having a huge impact on how advertisers are thinking about the content that they're creating and how they're getting the content out to the consumer. So in the traditional days, sort of that build up to the Super Bowl, brands were looking to really launch their campaigns for the year. That was when the creative was unveiled. And you really, you heard stories about how people would just be quiet during the advertising because they wanted to hear that commercial. Well, back in 2011, Volkswagen broke that mold. Volkswagen decided rather than waiting until game day and launching their ad in the game, they posted the ad online. I'm going to show you that ad now if you haven't seen it before.
That's always been one of my favorites.
So that ad garnered 11 million views prior to the Super Bowl airing. Great visibility for the brand even before the big game, and really sort of helps to highlight the ad as well during the game, because so many folks have had a chance to see it already, and they were already talking about it. Very effective strategy for Volkswagen. It wants me to keep showing it. So now we want to switch to talking about what are the trends for this year's Super Bowl. We're going to hit on 4 key ones that are really kind of the ones that most people are talking about today. That's the idea around shoppable advertising. I'm sure many of you have already heard this year's Super Bowl being called the Crypto Bowl due to all of the cryptocurrency advertisers that have jumped in. Similarly, the sports betting space has become a huge space, not just for football programming, but especially for the Super Bowl. And then a little bit on pre-gaming the ads overall. So the first example we're going to share is related to this idea of creating shoppable ads. And the example I'm going to use here is Avocados from Mexico. You know, the CMO from Avocados from Mexico talks about this idea that originally, as I mentioned before, the Super Bowl was all about building this brand awareness. How can I get my brand in front of as many people as possible? And then your job throughout the rest of the year was to keep that momentum going and turn that into sales. Well, they're not talking about momentum anymore. We're making the shift from this idea of brand awareness to what they're calling brand formance. And what do we mean by that? Your ad has to accomplish something, even shown on game day. So what do I mean by a shoppable ad? I'm going to show you the ad in a moment. But what Avocados from Mexico has done is to end the advertisement with a QR code that drives you to the site to really drive you to action, gives you the opportunity to go ahead and make a purchase immediately. Not only does that take you immediately from awareness to action, but it also provides Avocados from Mexico with some information about you. You provide them by downloading the QR code with some of your data, and then that allows them to reconnect with you throughout the year and make it that an ongoing relationship rather than just a one day hit. So let's take a look at this ad. I'm sourcing all of these from YouTube, so sometimes some weird things may pop up, but you'll get the sense of the ad.
Oh, nice. Maximus the Great's coming back this week.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Didn't he get eaten by that lion?
Not all of them. He'll still play.
Maximus the Great is dead.
This is officially the worst tailgate I've ever been to.
Barbarians. Later when they come to town.
Well, tough. We drove for 3 months with our kids in an ox cart just to watch you get destroyed.
Yeah, we made great time.
Herd, mutt, knock it off.
We came to see Maximus get fed to the wolves live in person.
You guys have wolves?
Oh, we got a lot of animals this year. We got a lion. We have a viper.
Ooh, and the panda.
Oh, he's so cute, but hungry.
Doesn't matter. We're gonna kick your.
I'm sorry. What are you doing?
Adding avocados from Mexico.
They're always good.
Want some?
Let's kick this party up a notch.
Here we go.
You know, they also taste great on salads.
Yeah, Caesar, we get it.
I love salads. If that's what I'm known for, I'll be happy.
Avocados from Mexico.
So there you can see the QR code that you could click and get directed directly to their site. It's this overall trend of using technology to drive creative as well. You'll see a number of ads from Intuit and TurboTax, and they talk about the Super Bowl as an opportunity for them to test creative. So they run a number of different creative units to try to see which seems to resonate more with people, and then they use that to inform their creative rotation decisions later on.
Oh, nice.
I mentioned the Crypto Bowl. So we have 3 cryptocurrency companies that will be advertising in the Super Bowl this Sunday. I'm going to show you the advertisement that has been released by FTX.
I spent my life trying to make this farm work, and I've missed out on a lot, but I am not going to miss out on this. FTX is giving away the time their ad runs in Bitcoin, and I'm going to win. We're going to win.
So why crypto? That seems like a really odd, according to Pew Research, about 16% of all Americans currently own crypto. A lot of people don't even know what it's about. Most of those people are younger, and half of them are male, which is one of the reasons why the Super Bowl is a great place for a cryptocurrency brand. It is very hard to reach males, especially in television. So the Super Bowl is one big event where you can reach a number of your male audience in one fell swoop. There's a couple other reasons they talk about for why they see the Super Bowl as an important and an effective place to advertise. One is you either know crypto or you don't. And most of the people who don't really understand crypto are also really afraid of crypto. So by advertising in the Super Bowl, you sort of put yourself out there as more of a mainstream brand. They're also looking to inject humor, making crypto more approachable. It will also help to establish that emotional connection around the brands. I mean, right now, it's so unclear what it is. It sounds scary. It sounds complicated, which it is. So if we can build that emotional connection to these brands, then again, we can start to break down the walls. And they also want to be seen as sort of that future of currency. Another thing that I think will be very effective for them is this, we talked about it earlier, this idea that the Super Bowl really brings the sense of community. Other than my friend who's an LA Rams fan who will be watching it by himself, most of us watch the Super Bowl with friends, family, in bars, etc. So it's very likely that there will be somebody in that group who does own crypto. So it's a good way to sort of start the conversation with someone who might have already had some knowledge of, and again, make it more mainstream, make it seem more emotional. But many are asking, is this just another dot bomb bowl? The dot bomb bowl was the year 2000. Here we have our adorable sock puppet back from pets.com. And what happened in the 2000 Super Bowl is a lot of internet advertisers came in for the first time. You have to remember the first ad ran on the internet in 1994. So we were only 6 years into the internet as a thing. So a bunch of advertisers came in ready to make a splash and kind of own the game and own the future. Almost I think all of the companies that advertised in the Super Bowl that year went out of business. What was happening was the internet at that point in time was almost like the gold rush in the Old West. People were throwing money in with really no regard as to whether that money was being invested wisely. So a lot of money was being spent on foosball tables and beer taps in the companies, but being invested into the companies without any true line of sight to making money back. None of those companies were making money when they advertised in the Super Bowl. Pets.com did not go out of business because people weren't buying pet food online. The investment in the Super Bowl that year is often pointed to as really the tipping point, the downfall for that company. They didn't have the revenue to support it. It didn't bring in the consumer base that it needed to, and Pets.com went out of business quite quickly. So there's a lot of references to the crypto bowl, to the dot bomb bowl. Now, certainly the cryptocurrency companies are making a lot more money than the internet companies were in 2000. So I don't expect to see them go out of business. The other big category that we're seeing that's new this year is the sports betting category. All of these companies have advertising invested in the Super Bowl. Tessa, they've really been with the NFL all year. So do you want to talk a little bit about their current partnership with the NFL?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all four of these brands and the sports book category has just grown incredibly over the last year or so. And looking at these brands, it's really been throughout the entire season, and it's been leading up to each of the NFL games. As Professor Egan mentioned, it's very difficult to reach that male young audience, and live sports is the opportunity to do that, and Super Bowl is the best opportunity to do that. So it is probably one of the largest days for the sports books. And what we've seen, and has been very interesting within this category, is they're not only spending at the local levels, but they're spending at the national levels as well. As we know, this is something, this category is legalized at a state level. So, but the brand awareness play as within national advertising has been, and we've seen high amount of revenue being placed on Super Bowl ads from these brands and from these companies. And not only on the big day on Sunday, but also leading up to it. So as NBC is currently airing the Winter Olympics, a lot of these brands are participating within the Winter Olympics as it is sports programming, but to drive that, increase users, the awareness, and to drive additional people to their apps and to their specific offerings on Super Bowl. So not only launching that creative on Sunday, but having it play throughout the week leading up to it to increase users to each of these apps.
So I'll show you an example of one of the ads that has been released already. This is the BetMGM ad, and I'm showing this ad because currently they have the most views within this category at a little over 2 million views on YouTube.
Yeah, a win feels good. But you know what feels better? A BetMGM win. Hitting unders, those spreads. Woo! That's how we do, baby. Now hold on a second. Now you're winning with the king of sportsbooks.
Hello, friends. If you like money, hello, friend.
We're not going to hear from him. So the last piece that I want to touch on here in terms of the trends is this idea of, I find it fascinating that Pepsi is teasing the halftime show. So they've released what they're calling a trailer for this year's halftime show. One of the reasons that I'm so fascinated by this is that Pepsi, as part of Frito-Lay and Pepsi, really created the halftime show as we know it today, and not in the way that you would imagine. Up until, so the Super Bowl started in 1967, up until 1992, the halftime show was marching bands. Again, for any alums or parents, you might remember the singing group Up With People, which was really just a souped up high school choral group. I hope none of you were in it because you'd probably be offended by me describing it in that manner. But in 1992, Frito-Lay decided they couldn't afford to advertise in the Super Bowl itself. So they decided they were going to do something a little different. So they went to the Fox network, which was a pretty young network at the time. And they worked in partnership to counter program the halftime show. So there was one of the top shows on Fox at the time was a show called In Living Color. So they partnered with In Living Color and created a halftime show on Fox. And that actually drew a huge audience away from the game to this counter programming. Next year, in 1993, I'm not sure who was airing the Super Bowl at the time, but realized we really need to up our game. And that is the point in time when it became this big show. So it makes sense that, you know, Pepsi understands the power of it. They've been a sponsor of it for a number of years. I'm just going to show you a little bit of this clip of the trailer for the halftime show.
I'm beginning to feel like a rap. Who thinks their arms are long enough to slap? Will there be truth for the blueprint? Civil rage and youth will exuberance. Everybody loves to root for a nuisance. See the earth like an asteroid, hit nothing but shoot for the moon since. Summer, lama, doom, lama, you assuming I'm a human. What I gotta do to get it through to you? I'm superhuman, innovative, and I made a rubber. So that anything you say is speak a singing off of me and it'll glue to you and devastating more than other haters are forever waiting for the day that they can say I fell off.
So hopefully, even if you don't want to tune into the game, you'll tune into the halftime show. That's important for Pepsi because not only is their name on it, but a lot of their ads will run during the halftime show. So for them to increase viewership of that or to get people to stick around will be beneficial for them in the long run. So I'm really going to wrap the previews with sort of my favorite ad. I'll play the ad and then I'll explain why I am so fascinated by this creative.
Hey, babe, check this out. Alexa, it's game day.
Streaming football on Prime Video, closing blinds, chilling rosé. Rosé?
Well, it's an afternoon game.
Oh. It's like she can read your mind. I love that we get to sleep in. Ordering fresh mint mouthwash. Extra strength.
I'm thinking I should get a spray tan, you know, because it's on Wednesday.
Activating blender.
Funeral's on Monday.
What about the gold, Papa? Can't you see the treasure all along? It was here.
Love the eye patch. When does the show open?
March 8th. Setting reminder to fake your own death on March 8th.
What the?
When you have to do those love scenes with hot guys, is that fun or is that like the worst?
It's the worst.
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies.
Scarlett, this bread is delicious. Did you make it?
Yes, it's from my Gammy's recipe.
Announcement. Gammy is short for she bought it at Whole Foods. Announcement. Colin left the oysters in the car for 5 hours.
It's probably better Alexa can't read your mind.
Bad idea.
That's the game.
Nice ride.
Want to give it a spin?
So I love that ad. I wish I could see your hands. I can't, but if you all raised your hands who think that Alexa can read your mind, I'm sure it would be many of you. As I said to a journalist from the New York Times the other day, this is either a brilliant ad or it's going to be a PR nightmare for Alexa. But I love the fact that they are just playing off of all of the conspiracy theories we all have over she's listening to you, she can read your mind, etc. I think it's really clever. So I'm just going to wrap up with a little bit on how we measure the success of these Super Bowl ads. For those of you who aren't familiar with the USA Today ad meter, it really is kind of considered the Academy of Arts and Sciences, what that is to the Oscars, the USA Today ad meter is to the Super Bowl. When you get the opportunity to create a Super Bowl ad, there's, your goal is to get to this #1 slot on the USA Today ad meter. It is people registering, voting for which ads they liked the best. The #1 ad in Super Bowl last year was this ad from Rocket Mortgage. Let's take a look at that real quick.
Can we even afford this house?
I'm pretty sure we can.
Pretty sure.
With Rocket Mortgage, you can be certain, not pretty sure.
What's the difference?
Let me show you. I'm pretty sure these aren't poisonous. I'm pretty sure these are parachutes.
Mine has a sandwich.
That's mine. Pretty sure you do not run. I'm pretty sure you can take Batista down. You're on.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is trending.
I'm pretty sure these hornets aren't the murdering type. I'm pretty sure we can make it.
CERN is better.
Let's go with certain.
Good choice.
When you're buying a home, pretty sure isn't.
So the beauty of the USA Today ad meter is you can participate. So you can go to admeter.usatoday.com. I've created a QR code for you, shoppable presentation, that you can go register to be one of the ad meter panelists. You can start rating ads right now that are posted, and then follow through along the game and rate the ads throughout the game. You do have to rate every ad in order for your votes to count. So it's a bit of a commitment, but if you're, could be a lot of fun if you're interested in having your voice heard. And then the results will be posted on usatoday.com on the next day. And if you're interested in seeing more of the ads that are currently online, YouTube has created a channel for this, youtube.com/adblitz. You can see all of the full ads that have been posted, and many of the teaser ads as well. I believe there's 70 ads posted by now. So there's a lot of great content to watch there. So with that, we will wrap and take questions.
So yeah, Professor Egan, as you will see, like in the Q&A function there, that is where everyone is going to be posting their questions. So if you and Tessa want to go through and start answering some of those, that would be great. So myself and my colleague Christina will be filtering those as well. So you can kind of start from the top and work your way down, because we got a few minutes. Yep, we got about 15 minutes here, so we can go through and answer some questions.
Sounds great. Jillian, that's an excellent question. Yes, local advertising does get viewership during the Super Bowl. You know, it's funny, every year, the day after the Super Bowl, I walk into class and everyone's like, how did that local pizza guy get an ad in the Super Bowl? There is some inventory within every television program that is allocated to the local station to sell on their own. So they get to sell the same viewership within their markets as you're seeing on a national level. The cost varies market by market. Nielsen ranks all of the television markets. There are 210 in the United States, ranks them from 1 to 210. So as you can imagine, the more highly populated markets, the New York, LA, Chicago, Miami, those will be at a higher cost than some of the lower markets, but they're sold at a premium as well.
And to that point, as you can imagine, it's the local Super Bowl for the Los Angeles market, #2 in the country. So those units are definitely going for a premium.
Good point. Did FTX pay for that Bitcoin or real money? Tessa, that's for you.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say, no, I'm going to go with that. It's definitely in real money. I don't think NBC Universal as an organization is accepting crypto as of now, but don't quote me on that.
Oh, interesting. Perennial advertising mainstay. I'll throw that to Tessa too and give it some thought. Are you seeing anything that pops to your head?
I think the reemergence of Budweiser and Anheuser-Busch within this Super Bowl is definitely something to pay attention to. I think they're going to come back in a very big way in this year versus last year. And that's definitely a brand that we all pay attention to and focus in on because of the incredible ads, and they all, the Clydesdales and the dogs always touch our hearts. So I think that's a brand that's definitely going to come back in a big way this year.
Yeah, I'm checking on my notes here. TurboTax has been in the past 9 Super Bowls. Alexa has been in the last 7, as have avocados. I believe avocado sat it out last year because of the avocado shortage. But those, looking at my notes quickly, those are sort of the new ones that have been around for a number of years. Hello, is it Magdalene? Am I pronouncing that right? I'm Irish, so I should know. My sister who speaks Gaelic would have my head. How could Pepsi play on the special guest in the halftime show? I heard today they were practicing for the halftime show and blasting music outside the stadium so fans couldn't hear what was going on inside. That's interesting. That's a really great question. I think, if you think about it, Pepsi has long had a connection to music. Michael Jackson was a Pepsi spokesperson for many, many years. They've also always sought to attach themselves to young music groups, young musicians, as still trying to be sort of that younger brand vis-a-vis Coca-Cola. So I think you'll see them doing a variety of different partnership activities with some of these folks in terms of trying to keep that connection going. They really want to piggyback on those musicians' fan base and come along for the ride as they grow and they grow their followers. I hope that answered your question. If not, you can type a follow-up in. What is the average budget that companies spend on production for Super Bowl ads? Wow, it really varies. I would say they're going to spend more on a Super Bowl ad than on any other ad, or they should be spending more on a Super Bowl ad than any other ad. I'm trying to think what the average production cost is right now. I would say if you're spending, let's say you're spending $1 million normally to produce an ad, you would probably want to invest at least 3 times that to really make something that stands out. But not all advertisers do. I mean, you'll see some fairly low budget creative on the campaign, sometimes because they blew so much money on the ad time itself that they don't have enough left over to produce something huge. I think that pets.com ad was produced at very low budget. Does advertising during the Super Bowl prove to have long-term effects for that brand? Oh, awesome question. And I would say the jury's still out on that. I think people who advertise in the Super Bowl will say yes. But I think proving that has been very, very difficult over time. That's why you see a lot of movie advertising in the Super Bowl, because they're trying to drive an opening weekend audience. And so they can get that mass audience in the Super Bowl and that gets converted right away. And that's the only impact that they have. So that's a long debate within the advertising industry. I said I analyzed these opportunities for many, many years. Full disclosure, I'm not a huge fan of Super Bowl advertising unless you're a large brand, because you're going to spend so much of your advertising budget on that one day. And if you don't break through that clutter, if you're not in that, I'd say top 30% of that USA Today ad meter, you've probably had little effect. How do PR and advertising work together to make ads behind the scenes? Do public relations advisors have creative input? So in terms of creating the ads themselves, no, not normally. I think that's evolving. I think, it sounds like you're probably a PR student. So I'm sure you're hearing in your classroom that PR and advertising are starting to sort of blend. So we may see a little bit more of that. Where PR comes into play is, building these strategies around, how do we want to release the ad? I would imagine many PR agencies would be involved in developing the social strategy around the campaign, both before, during, and after the big day. One of the biggest wins in terms of the Super Bowl and social media is the infamous Oreo dunk in the dark spot when the lights went out in New Orleans. One thing to note in that, it was tremendously clever. And I know the guy who actually tweeted that out, and he's built quite a nice little career for himself on that 30 seconds of fame. But you have to know those things don't happen spontaneously. Oreo they had a war room. They were sitting in the agency in a war room, ready to take advantage of anything that happened in that game to further their advertising presence. And that was just a perfect opportunity that presented itself. Do you have a point of view on issues related ads, for example, healthcare heroes during the pandemic or 9/11 themes in the past? Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really tricky one for advertisers because it can go either way. I don't know if you remember the Jeep ad from last year with Bruce Springsteen. And while Jeep was one of the #1 ads in the Super Bowl before, that Bruce Springsteen ad, it just was seen as so polarizing that it really backfired for Jeep. I think there's moments, advertising is always looking at all of the external factors that are occurring to help inform what they do with their creative. And those external factors are economic, cultural, societal, political, environmental, all of that comes into play. So I think, there's seminal moments in our history where you can't ignore it. So as you pointed out, post 9/11, brands just felt a need to address that. And certainly during the pandemic, brands really struggled with, with how to, you don't want to ignore it because it's real and it's happening, but how do you do it, and how do you do it in an authentic way? So I think it works really well for brands. And, Nike is a perfect example, not that they're a Super Bowl advertiser, but Nike can take on these issues because they have a history and a consistency around it. But when brands try to, a brand like Jeep, try to hop in and take advantage of a moment, I think that's when it really backfires for them. Isabella, during the Super Bowl, how much time is spent actually seeing the ads? Is there a certain amount of time ads can go over? Tessa, do you want to take that?
Definitely. So in terms of actually viewing the ads, we would have the commercial breaks and the pods, and you could see units from anywhere from 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, as Professor Egan was sharing with the latest Meta ad, but that's going to be close to 90 seconds. So those are very standard ad units, 15, 30, 60, 90. Ads are built to those specific units and would not, run over that. And within those pods, you'll see specific breaks and specific commercial breaks dedicated to autos, only one auto and things like that, based off a category.
Okay, we have 3 more questions, so we'll answer those real quickly because as Tessa mentioned, we have a late breaking ad that has been released today, and that is from Meta, the artist formerly known as Facebook. So I want to show that before we break. So Jillian and Gail, your question is somewhat related. Yes, and yes on funny ads. Funny ads work. People come to the Super Bowl, they want to be entertained. And if you go back and look at historical USA Today ad meters, almost without exception, the top ads, those emotional ads are the most liked. Again, just because we're in a convivial moment and we don't want to be brought down. And Tessa, I'll throw the last one to you.
Yeah, great question. So does NBC sell ad space differently on Peacock versus cable to fill those local spots? So as mentioned, any ad you see on the linear broadcast is also going to be passed through to Peacock and the NBC Sports app. And then, so that's going to air across both of those. So locally, you would not see those specific to a market on Peacock, and that inventory is going through whatever the national feed is.
Great. So great questions. Thank you all for that. If you'll indulge me for 90 more seconds, you will be some of the first people who have seen the ad that will be airing from Meta. Of course, there's ads for the ads.
Closing time. Get out, please. Stop playing, please. And let's go, folks. Come on. You two over there. Come on, let's go.
Again, an effort on Facebook's part to make something that seems very scary to some people fun, approachable, and hopefully mainstream. So with that, thank you, Wes, very much for giving us this opportunity, and thank you all for spending some time with us.
Right, thank you. So Professor Egan, we want to thank you for that amazing presentation. Tessa, thank you as well for being with us and also being an amazing alum for us as well. So we appreciate it. Everyone, thank you all for coming. Family, friends, current students, prospective students, alumni, thank you all for showing up this evening.